there, folks. Welcome to the channel. I'm glad you could be here. In today's episode, I'm going to show you how I deal with a freeze-drying disaster. A little while back, we made a video, I'm not sure if you remember, about how to make dragon fruit chips. They were absolutely amazing. They were light and they were crispy. They were sweet and tangy. We were working with a lot of different varieties. Well, this is what those chips look like today. Check that out. They are no longer light and crispy. Matter of fact, they are soft. They are gummy. This has clearly absorbed quite a bit of moisture, and if we don't do anything about this right now, they will eventually start to mold. And this right here, this is one of those issues that you don't really hear a lot of people talking about. Packaging. Now, this video is not about packaging, but it is super important to consider the kind of packaging that you use for your freeze-dried product. The bag that I'm using here is a 3 mil thick bag from VacMaster. We have 2 desiccant packs in here, and it didn't work. Maybe the quality of the bag is a little more permeable than I'd like to admit. Maybe a 5 or 7 mil bag would be a little bit more suited for something like this. Either way, this does not work, and I'm not going to peel each one of those chips and refreeze dry them, although you could. And let's say you do candy, right? You have a freeze-dried candy business, or fruit or food or whatever, and you put that freeze-dried candy in a bag like this. This is a craft bag. And don't get me wrong, I love these bags. They're cheap, they're accessible. We use them all the time for our dehydrated dog treat business, but freeze-dried food is very different than dehydrated food. Freeze-dried food is incredibly hygroscopic and will want to naturally absorb the moisture from the air. And these bags are 100% not airtight. And so you may put your crispy, crunchy fruit or your Jolly Ranchers or gummy worms or peach rings or whatever you have, Skittles, in a bag like this, and it starts off crunchy. It may be crunchy long enough to be able to go to a market and sell it, but as long as this sits on the counter, it's going to be slowly absorbing the moisture that's in the environment. And so if you have a rainy day, a high humid day, if you live in the South, forget about it. This bag will ruin your food and you're going to have some super disappointed customers. Matter of fact, if I ever use this bag to sell our freeze-dried products, what I do first is put the freeze-dried products in, a smaller version of this bag. I seal it with a couple desiccant packets in it. I put it then in this packet, seal it again, so you got 2 layers of protection. And then the moment I sell it to that customer, I let them know that they need to put it in an airtight container. Otherwise, that beautiful, crispy, crunchy texture will be gone in a matter of days. All right, I digress. Enough of that. This video is not about packaging, but packaging is incredibly important, as you see right here.
All right, let's open up these packs and see what we're working with. And I think I've got something like 10 or 11 of these rehydrated dragon fruit chip packs. When we made the dragon fruit chips, I think we were working with 100, 150 pounds of different varieties of dragon fruit. And they were spectacular, but I guess we put them away, forgot about them, and this is what happened. And so right here, I think the best course of action is to try and consolidate everything that we have into just one solid sheet. But there's a lot of gaps, there's a lot of air, so we're going to pop that in the oven and see if we can soften this up a bit. I am liking how the dragon fruit is becoming slightly gummy in the oven. This is a very low heat for probably 5 or 10 minutes. And we're just going to roll it out. And honestly, I'm not sure what's going to happen. So we're just kind of playing it by ear. All right, roll number 1. That's what it looks like. Not too bad. It's starting to compress. Let's pop it back in the oven. Oven's probably at 200 degrees. We're going to put it in there for 5 to 8 minutes. And let's roll it again, but without the baking sheet underneath it. And as I'm doing this, I'm half inclined to pull out my dough sheeter, almost kind of like you would roll out fondant. But this is such a dense mass, I don't think it would work. So we're going to do it by hand. All right, we just folded the dragon fruit onto itself, and we're going to repeat the process. Back into the oven, 5 to 8 minutes, low temp. We're going to roll it out a few more times. And this is what it looked like as it came out of the oven for the last time. Very pleased with the results here. This is kind of what I was hoping for, just like one solid piece of dragon fruit. Everything's bound together. I'm loving how many layers there are. It's going to be pretty ridiculous, I think. What would you do if you were faced with this situation? Leave me a comment in the comment section below. How would you salvage this dragon fruit disaster? It is pretty sticky, and I think, what's really helping out here is putting it in the oven. It's kind of turning into a very pliable gummy. I still think it's a little on the thick side, but I'm loving how flexible this is. And so we're just going to kind of run with it and see what happens. And I don't really have any plans as to what to do with this. I mean, I guess I could roll it up into a big roll and stuff it with like a dragon fruit flavored marshmallow or something like that, and then freeze dry that, cut it into rings. That'd be kind of interesting. It'd be huge. But I think what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep it super simple. I'm going to cut these into little squares and see how that operates. I want the end result to be flavorful, crispy, crunchy. Dragon fruit is an interesting fruit when you freeze dry it. I mean, if you have too much of it in one bite, it does kind of produce a strange texture. And what you're looking at is 80, 85 pounds of dragon fruit that's been freeze dried, slightly rehydrated, and then formed into one mass. And so this little square that I'm cutting here, who even knows? I mean, this may be like one entire dragon fruit condensed into one bite, which, now that I'm thinking about it, might be a little too much. It might be a little overwhelming. But you know what? We're going to see what happens. There's our squares. I'm loving the beautiful layers that each square has. And let's get our Stay Fresh Freeze Dryer trays ready to go. I am going to line those with silicone mats that I made for the Stay Fresh Freeze Dryer. Let me know in the comment section below if you want to know how to make them or if you want information on how to get them. This is what all of our squares look like. So that entire block has now been transformed. One little bite here. It is incredibly dense. And this is pretty heavy for a little square, but I'm loving how it looks. The seeds cut through quite nice. It kind of gives you this really weird starry effect, I think. If you ate this right now, just like this, it would be pretty intense. I mean, a lot of layers, a lot of different flavors. It's like a really dense, gummy or fruit leather. Let's take it up a notch, though, by adding a little water to the top of those squares. The dragon fruit is sweet. Let's bring sour. We're going to bring a 50-50 combination of malic acid and citric acid. That's what this powder mix is right here. And I don't want to get too crazy because I don't want to overwhelm the flavor of the dragon fruit, but I do think a little pop right at the very beginning will be very interesting, very fun. This is what it looks like when we're done. Let's load up our Stay Fresh freeze dryer tray. And this is what I love about having a freeze dryer. You can just literally play and experiment with food, and this is totally an experiment because I have no idea what's going to happen. But let's load it into our freeze dryer. Now, I've already got the unit turned on. It's been running for about an hour, you can see right here. And I've preset the shelf temperature to -20. It's currently at -13. So I'm going to load up my trays now because I don't believe there's a lot of moisture in this dragon fruit. I think it's very minimal. And the extra hour or however long it takes to get down to our target temperature, I think we'll freeze the water and then the cycle will begin. So it should be okay. Opening it up, we're going with the 4-tray system as opposed to the 7-tray system, simply because I need a little bit of clearance. I'm hoping, I'm not sure it will, but I'm hoping that we get a little bit of rise, and this is what our dragon fruit looks like the next morning, and this is what our dragon fruit squares look like. The machine's been running at 120 degrees Fahrenheit for about 16 hours, and that is some Magic Dragon puffballs. I am very pleased with the way that looks. Let's go ahead and pause the machine, open up the fresh air valve on the top left-hand corner, introduce some fresh air, and break the seal. And as much as I was hoping for the little dragon fruit squares to puff up, I'm not really sure what to think about it. I mean, they look beautiful. I love the coating. I love the seeds. The color lightened up a little bit, so it's not nearly as dark. And I gotta be honest, I think it's a little too big. One of those bites may be overwhelming. They still look pretty dense, although they did get a nice little rise to them. Let me get some gloves on here and take a look at one a little bit closer. Yeah, that is still pretty firm. Loving the layers, though. You can very clearly see all the different layers of the different dragon fruit chips that we had. So I think what we're going to do here is reduce the size. I think that if we can cut these in half, we might be able to have something a little bit more manageable. I'd like to get a little more rise out of it, maybe lighten them up a little bit, make them not nearly as dense as these right here. Let's cut this one in half. Look at that. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Beautiful layers. I'm loving that. That's really cool. Okay, let's now recoat the bottom of our tray. I did give one a taste, and it was nice and crunchy, but it was like really dense. And so I don't think that's going to make for a very pleasant dragon fruit eating experience. And then we're going to coat the top. So a little more of our malic citric blend. And what we're going to do now is put these back into our Stay Fresh freeze dryer, but at a slightly higher temperature. I want to warm the trays for about 20 minutes before we start the process of freeze drying. That should soften them up a bit. We are in the function screen, which lets us warm the trays. And if you want to see a video on how to do that, then check out the video suggestion at the end of this video. But notice that we are pretty close to our target temperature. Shelf temperature is 144 and the target temperature is 150. So I'm going to go ahead and activate the TS button, which sets that temperature, and we're good to go. Notice the time box says 12 minutes under TS. We're going to let our dragon fruit warm for about 20 minutes, and so when that gets to 32, 33 minutes, we will activate the process and see what happens here. Under this mode, I don't think we need to run it very long, but we'll see what happens. Once again, 100% of an experiment. Let's activate the pump. Let's open up the drain valve. All right, there we go. A little bit of a rise on those squares. 4.5 hours have passed. Let's close the valve, turn off the pump, turn off the heater, and then turn off the compressor. And that's how you deactivate manual mode. Let's open up the freeze dryer and see what we're working with here. All right. Look at the walls of the freeze dryer. A little bit of moisture still being pulled from those squares, letting me know round one didn't get it all the way. That's probably why it was still dense. And as I'm looking at this square right here, it's still relatively firm. Matter of fact, this is not the texture that I was hoping for. I'm hoping for something a little bit lighter. Don't get me wrong, these are totally edible. I ate one off camera, but they are still relatively firm, almost kind of the texture of like a Werther's Original, and I do not want that. So we're going to cut those into quarters. One last attempt here to try to create the perfect dragon fruit snack. And as far as the acidity goes, I do think that we're going to add just a touch more. I felt like we were getting close. I think the density of the dragon fruit, the concentration of the flavor, did not give me the balance that I was hoping for. I want a nice pop at the beginning and then a sweet finish at the very end. So we are going to add just a touch more of that malic citric blend. This is what our dragon fruit looks like now. We have little cubes. I think this is a great size, and I'm hoping that the reduction of size will help any remaining moisture that's trapped inside this dragon fruit escape. At least that's the idea. So let's pop this back into the freeze jar. We are going to warm the trays 20 minutes at 150 degrees. There we go. Nice little rise, a little bit of a rise. The walls of the freeze dryer did have ice accumulation, which let me know that whatever moisture is remaining is now gone, and they just visibly look lighter. They are definitely a little bit bigger than when they went in, and I think this is about as close to being done as we're going to be. So we're just going to go ahead and wrap it up right here and give these a taste. So let's grab one of them. Beautiful finish. A lot of different layers here. Neat dragon fruit varieties kind of stacked on top of each other. That should bring a really complex flavor. I'm loving the citric and malic blend. It's not overwhelming. I think it should be a good balance, at least at this point. But that is personal preference. So, you know, you can always add more or whatever, depending on what you like. Let's take this one and give it a bite.
All right, guys, were we able to salvage our freeze-dried dragon fruit disaster and turn it into something a little more savable? You tell me. This is the end result. Look at those beautiful layers all piled up in there. I don't even remember how many varieties we were working with at the time when we made the chips. I want to say it was like 23, 28 different varieties, lots of different flavor profiles. So this should be really good, really complex. It'll be a very interesting dragon fruit experience. And I'm glad you got to come along with me on the journey rather than just seeing, you know, the final product and how that was made. Truth is, I didn't know where we were going to end up. I mean, all I knew is that I wanted something crispy, crunchy, melt in your mouth. So I knew it couldn't be dense. Midway through the process, I thought it'd be fun to add a little acidity, give it kind of that warhead element to it. And this is our final product. All right, how does it taste? Let's give it a bite. Oh, wow. That is so good. I'm loving the acidity addition. I mean, it adds a completely different layer to an already complex dragon fruit. Let me go in for another round here. Wow. That's perfect. That arguably may be better than the chips themselves. I mean, you're picking up all the complexity from the different dragon fruits. The texture is exactly what I was looking for. It's not too dense. It's not too light. It's just somewhere right in between. So you can handle it. You don't have to worry about it completely breaking apart inside your packaging. And when you give it a bite, it's got the perfect chew, the perfect acidity. It's got a real nice pop to it, and then it finishes off with a beautiful sweetness. Woo, that is so good. And how do we prevent what happened initially from happening again? Let me show you right quick.
Well, there's a couple different ways that you could do this. The way I'm going to do it is put it into a Mylar bag. I know this will work definitively. I'm also going to add 4 desiccant packs, 4 moisture absorbers as well. And what that's going to do is just get rid of the moisture that's in the air trapped inside the bag. This is very short-term storage for me, so I don't need to put any kind of O2 absorbers or anything like that. As far as sealing it up, use whatever you got. I'm going to put a beautiful crimp seal with this sealer that I have here, but if you have an impulse sealer or a hair straightening iron, works as well. Whatever you got, I like this one because it puts a nice beautiful seal on it. And there we go.
The packaging is definitely where it's at. This is a 7 mil, 1 gallon Mylar bag. Totally overkill, but I guarantee you we are not going to be losing that beautiful, crispy, crunchy texture. Another place that you could store this is in a mason jar. Just make sure that you vacuum seal that mason jar before you shut it down. It'll also hold its beautiful, crispy, crunchy texture. If you want this for long-term storage, because for me, this is very short term. I will eventually open this up, repackage it, and then give them out to our customers. But if you want this for long-term storage, pop in an oxygen absorber, store it in a cool, dark place. You are good to go. And there you have it, folks. Very pleased with the results. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, be sure to ask them in the comment section below. And if you are interested in freeze-drying food, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. Also, if you want more information on the Stay Fresh freeze dryer, I'll put a link in the description box below. We just started a group on Facebook that goes over the Stay Fresh freeze dryer in extraordinary detail. Tips, tricks, recipes, all that great stuff. I'll put a link in the pinned comment. Head over there, join, and be a part of an awesome freeze-drying community. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Wow.